If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Every Friday, we sit down and chat about a case that we feel has an important message that can help others in similar situations, save a life, change mindsets, or even contribute in changing laws. But before we dive in, here's a little side note. Every bit of information, images, or footage was compiled from what's available online, or if we were lucky in some cases, from the very people closest to the case. All opinions expressed are our own. We mean absolutely no disrespect. So don't click out and stay a while.
Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be about Travis Victor Alexander, born in Riverside, California on the 28th of July, 1977. He was born to David Alexander and Pamela Elizabeth, which were both drug addicts. He wasn't cared for, and he lived in a house that was infested with rats and cockroaches. His mom, often after getting high, would beat him, and eventually, with the death of his father in 1977, at the age of 11, Travis and his 7 siblings were adopted by his grandparents. This is where he learned about the LDS Church and became a Mormon.
At the age of 18, he went on a mission trip to Denver, Colorado, which is basically a 2-year trip where, for those who are familiar with the Mormon religion, it is a rite of passage to convert as many people as possible and share in the faith and witness the faith alongside other young Mormons as well. By the time he completed his trip, he felt like it was now time to look for a respectable Mormon woman to become his wife. In the meantime, he casually dated. In the Mormon religion, you are not supposed to be having premarital sex. Travis at that time was not partaking in such
recreation?
Yes, Travis was not partaking in such recreation, as you so well put it. In the year 2000, he started dating a girl called Diana Rev, but she was meant to go on a mission in Costa Rica. And when she came back in 2002, they rekindled their romance. When he was 27 is when he first lost his virginity to Diana. As far as our research, because obviously neither of us are Mormons, so we can only base ourselves to what's available to us on the internet. And apparently for the Mormon religion, there are 3 sins that they believe are the worst sins. The first one being murder, the second one is adultery, and the third one is having sex before marriage. They eventually broke up, and his friends say that he wanted to explore before getting ready to settle down. So this is just to give you a little bit more of a timeline of events, basically, onto what will eventually happen to Travis Alexander. In 2006 is a meeting that will seal his fate when he meets a young lady named Jodi Arias.
Let's talk a little bit about Jodi and her backstory before we continue on how she went on to meet Travis. She was born July 9th of 1980 in California. She's the oldest child of Sandy and William, or Bill, Arias. Her mom describes Jodi as a very intelligent person. Bill Arias, her father, says she was a rebellious teen. In 8th grade, they caught Jodi growing marijuana, so they called the police. She was very upset and embarrassed. From then on, she hid everything from her parents.
You know, when she talked about how she felt embarrassed because her parents called the police, but she even went as far as saying she felt like the trust was broken. Along the same lines, she says, yeah, my parents, they used to hit me with
a wooden spoon and a belt.
Spoon. Which one of us have never been hit with a wooden spoon? You know, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but I was born and raised in Mauritius. And anybody who's got some Mediterranean, Latino blood or African blood We know what we're talking about.
We know what a wooden spoon looks like.
Yeah, we used to be hit with a slipper, whatever was close to looking like a weapon would be.
A slipper doesn't sound all that bad.
No, just to clarify, it was a rubber slipper. But if any of you are Mauritians listening, you know what our rubber slippers look like. So that was just a little side note. At the age of 17. Her dad grounded her for repeatedly skipping school, so she decided it's better to run away with her on and off boyfriend than 20-year-old Bobby Waits to Oregon. While they were off again, guess what? She started dating his roommate, Matt McCartney. They studied Buddhism, Hinduism, and meditated together.
Later on, we find out that she's got bipolar disorder. Those who are not familiar with bipolar disorder, the people who have this condition are not sure how they see themselves. They don't know what their true interests or values are, so they often change. And these can easily be influenced by the people around them. For example, their partner.
She and Matt eventually broke up in 2001 because she found out that he was unfaithful. And at age 22, she started working as a waitress at Venter Inn and Spa. When she started a relationship with recently divorced 42-year-old Daryl, who was her manager at the time. He had a 3-year-old son who got along fairly well with Jodi, but what is important to point out is something a bit creepy that Jodi started doing once she got with Daryl. She decided that she was going to change her appearance to match Daryl's ex-wives by bleaching her hair from dark brown to blonde and getting breast implants. And she even went as far as buying the exact same car as Daryl's ex-wives. Now, this is it's not only just creepy, but it also brings out so blatantly that this girl was insecure. I think that's the right word to use here. It just brings out all her insecurities about herself. So it's more of a reflection of herself rather than competing with the ex-wife, if you might say, because she wanted probably to be the image that she felt in her head that Daryl was attracted to or something.
Well, if we go on a little bit further, we'll find out that bipolar disorder, it all comes back to that. She was afraid of being abandoned.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. So she will try anything to try and avoid.
Well, we see the same thing happen with when she got in a relationship with Matt. Any partner she comes in contact with, begins a relationship with, she kind of takes on that identity of what does this person like? What are this person's value? Daryl, she might have thought, oh, well, obviously, if he's married to someone who's blonde, big breast, implanted, maybe that's what he likes. So she went after go for that look.
The word that comes to mind when you just described this, chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. It's someone who it's like a shapeshifter almost, like someone who can just adapt into the environment to try and fit in, but not just fit in a normal sense of the word, because everyday people don't do that. You keep to your personality. You like me, you don't like me, you don't like me. It's simple. So in 2005, together with Daryl, they bought a house. And to cut a long story short, they ended up breaking up because Jodi wanted to be married and have kids, but they weren't on the same page, obviously, because Daryl was done with being married and having more kids. He just wanted to live his life. He was happy with his hot little girlfriend and the house together. He said no thanks and decided that he was going to move back to Northern Cali, but she wanted to stay in Palm Desert. Now, she couldn't afford that house on her waitressing income. And that's when she started thinking about what else she could do, and she hears about PPL. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
PPL stands for Prepaid Legal Services. It is a multi-level marketing where Alexander was a salesman and motivational speaker. So this is where Jodi meets Travis Alexander at a business conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he was an executive director. David, the man that introduced them, says that that night they were inseparable. They right away exchanged numbers. This was a Thursday night. They spent Friday and Saturday together at the conference. And then on Sunday, they said their goodbyes.
But they weren't intimate.
No.
Because the relationship becomes intimate later on, but not quite yet. When she met Travis, the relationship with Daryl is on the brink of finishing. She is still at that time in that relationship with him.
So that Sunday evening, they said their goodbyes, and Travis returned to Arizona and Jodi to Palm Desert, California, where she was sharing the home with Daryl. They continued to stay in touch, and right away they were talking about kids and marriage and how they both valued these kinds of things.
Is it fair to say that the infatuation was not just a one-way at that point?
Oh no, he was definitely chasing her.
Yeah.
They were talking about how much they value children and family and marriage and how that's the only way to be fulfilled in life. Travis told Jodi that this is something that he wanted, something that he was looking forward to. Jodi, at this point, she is having trouble with Daryl for these exact reasons.
Yeah, and we're going to play the devil's advocate a little bit back and forth here, because we're not in any way, shape or form saying what happened to Travis as in he deserved it in any way at all. But I also need to bring out the point that he also somehow sold Jodi a dream of what she wanted from Daryl, because at that point they had been together for a few years, her and Daryl.
Yes, they were dating for, I believe it was 2 years?
Yeah, and she wanted marriage and kids from him, which he wasn't prepared to give. But as you just clearly stated, is Travis already started broaching the subject of marriage and kids.
3 days after they met.
Which is what she was after in the first place.
It was music to her ears.
Exactly.
On Thursday, she told Travis that she broke things off with Daryl. And while on this call, Travis decided that, oh, hey, we should meet up this weekend. So they met up at Hugh's house, also a couple that was in the LDS church.
So were they acting like some kind of a chaperone sort of thing?
I think so. It kind of seems
they were
that
meant
way.
to be that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because they were also part of the LDS church, they allowed them, Jodi and Travis, to come and visit. But the arrangement was that they sleep in separate bedrooms.
Yeah.
Jodi says that after dinner, he whispered something to her, that once the Hughes fell asleep, he would come into her room. And he did just that.
And that's the start of the intimacy. So if I look at the timeline correctly, that's literally about a week after they met, right?
Well, yeah.
It would be a week, because if they met again the following weekend. So imagine how fast this train is moving. And you could easily say it happens to a lot of people. It happens to a lot of my friends, where you meet that person and you feel that instant connection and things are moving quite fast. But at this point, within 2 or 3 days of meeting, and you're already talking about marriage with a person who already has her brain wired to be drawn to someone who's willing to give her that. And then at the one point that you've just stressed on now, he was the one who made the first move in terms of, I'm going to sneak into your room.
Yeah, she says that this is something that he whispered to her. But if you talk to the Hughes couple, they say that Travis told him, the husband, that this wasn't true. He did kiss her, but he left her wanting more.
Yes. So as we see, there's two sides to the story. So the following Wednesday, after that weekend that they spent at the Hughes, they met at a coffee shop where Travis gave her a Book of Mormon, and then they drove separately to a nearby park. This is where things got a little bit hot and heavy between them. And even though intercourse itself was not initiated up to this point, but there were other things being done. It's not Jodi who made him break his vow, because he already broke it with his ex-girlfriend when he was 27. I don't think it would be fair to blame it on her in that situation. So a few weeks later, they meet again in Arizona, where he tells her that they can do everything according to the law of chastity, except for intercourse. Now, there's a little bit of double standard.
Yes.
So they spent a weekend at a motel doing just that, but no intercourse. After that particular weekend, they officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. I think that weekend sealed the deal in Travis's mind, maybe. But I think Jodi was already reeled in at that point. They talked, emailed, and texted every day. And in November 2006, Jodi converted and was baptized into the Mormon faith and becomes part of Travis's church.
He was actually the elder that oversaw her baptism.
Yeah. Obviously, if we looked at based on the conversation, because we weren't there, based on what we saw, he was infatuated, he chased her. And he also tried to say, well, we're going to get married and have kids. For us to be able to do that, you need to be a Mormon, because I cannot marry outside of my faith, right? So I think all this led to Jodi converting. So she did that again. We see that same thing we talked about with her adapting to her new environment here.
It is a pattern that she has with all of her partners. We saw it with Matt, we saw it with Daryl, and now we're seeing it with
Travis. Just to put this in perspective, this is a 2 months timeline. All of this happened.
From the moment she met her to when she got baptized?
Exactly. If we're looking at this, it's like for the man who's promising to give her everything she wanted, she was willing to do just anything, I suppose.
Yeah, because it's a big commitment to change your life completely.
Even to change your religion. I grew up in a place where interfaith celebration is common, where interfaith marriages, it's something that existed for a very long time in my country. It's not taboo, right? But you also have some of the people who are even members of my own family who've converted to a particular religion to be married to their partner, even though it's not a requirement in Mauritius, because we have plenty of people that I know who kept their faith and married into somebody else's faith, and each of them practiced what they believe in, and that's never been a problem. But most of the people who I know did that, whether it's the interfaith marriages or getting baptized into a different into a different religion, it's because they are taking that relationship so seriously that they see it as being, this is going to be my future wife or husband who I will have kids with. So as you just clearly pointed out, nobody does it without clearly thinking that's
a long-term commitment.
Exactly. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more about what happens next? Because we've clearly seen Jodi taking that plunge, baptized into the Mormon faith, and getting herself ready to be the girlfriend that Travis wanted or expected of her.
But you see, that didn't help, because even though she got baptized and converted into the Mormon faith, a few months later, they broke up. They didn't date for more than 6 months. In the beginning of the summer of 2007, Alexander began dating other women. And at the same time, he was telling friends around that time period that he believed that Jodi was stalking him.
Yeah, so he must have already sensed there was something off with the relationship, if you might say.
Well, if you listen to some of the interviews with his friends, a lot of them say that Travis wanted a good Mormon wife.
Yeah.
One that was chaste, which she was not. One that was obedient and all of that kind of stuff. But listen, at the same time, he wanted a blonde bombshell that was arm candy.
Yeah, well, it is a bit of a double standard. Sorry, Travis. Right now, at this very specific part of the story, I don't agree with you.
You ain't looking so good.
No.
No, but that was the lifestyle he was going for at this time. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, he was a young bachelor. One of his best friends, who was also a Mormon, and I believe one of his roommates at a point, said that he wanted that kind of bachelor lifestyle, but at the same time he was torn.
Yeah, but fair enough. That's not the part that I disagree with, because I think, if you're young, you're still single, live your life, experience the world before you settle down. We're all for that, because some of us have experience settling down and tying yourself down before you even experience the world, and then later on to find out, okay, hang on, I don't know nearly enough, and I feel unprepared, or I feel like I've lost my youth. Some of us have had that, so I'm all for that, no problem. Listen, I've got a 22-year-old son, and I would tell him exactly the same thing: is be safe, have fun, be respectful, but enjoy your life as long as you can. But once you make a commitment, once you go that step, don't take that step and then turn around and say,
well, let me ask you about this, Crystal, because you do have a 22-year-old son. Even though Alexander believed Jodi was stalking him, he still had a relationship with her, an intimate relationship with her. He didn't want to be her boyfriend, didn't want any kind of friendship. He wanted to be friends with benefits.
Yeah, but this is where I'm sorry, because it's the double standard that upsets me, because you're leaving, if you sense that there is some sort of danger, you're being stalked, you're in fear, whatever it is, that you should put some distance, and proper distance. And also, forget about stalking. Whoever out there, if you're dating and you decided you don't want to be together anymore, that's fair enough. You are allowed to have a change of mind. You are allowed to not want to be with someone anymore. However, do not leave the door slightly open.
Don't drag the person along.
No, especially if the person has not stopped loving you, if the person has not stopped having feelings for you, you leaving that door open, slightly open, gives them a sense of hope. And if you give them a sense of hope, you're sort of letting them believe that you will come back.
This is a good point you're bringing up, because after the breakup, guess what Jodi did?
Go on.
She moved closer to Travis.
Yeah, you see? So for me, in my mind, I'm thinking, and that's again, it is my opinion and my opinion alone. I feel that he should not have done that. And the double standards here, I go back to something that you just said just a little bit ago, when you said, yes, his friend said he wanted that kind of bachelor lifestyle. But there's also Travis saying, I want a good, chaste Mormon woman. Hang on a second. This is where the double standard comes into play again, because you're the one who chased the woman. You leaped into her bed. You drove into a park so she could pleasure you. You lived with the woman for a bit. You talked about having kids. So you reeled her in a little bit. And that's where I'm a little bit upset at what he's done. And look, hindsight is 2020. Right? So I'm thinking maybe at the time he didn't realize what harm he was causing and what kind of worms he was opening, because I think that was a trigger for her. Don't you agree?
I do.
And during my research, guess what I found? I was listening to some of the interviews and did some research on the whole thing. And after Jodi moved closer to Travis, they were off at that time. They were not on, right? And he had started seeing other women, and that sent her into like a rage. You know what she did?
What's that?
She slashed his tire.
Oh, I heard about that.
She hacked into his Facebook.
And his bank account.
But not just that.
What else?
She broke into his house while he was sleeping through the doggy latch.
Stop.
I just said doggy latch.
Through the doggy door.
Through the doggy door. How absolutely creepy is that? First of all, how do you get through that as a grown woman?
Did you see how little his dog is, though?
No,
he doesn't have a big dog. I've seen a picture of his dog.
That just gave me the chills, because that makes it even more weird how she must have slivered through that. But seriously, think about it. That is creepy. So this is where the level of creepiness goes. I mean, we've seen it in the past, but compared to what she's just done, this is what she did with Daryl, like trying to get the breast implants and stuff. That's minor. That's minor compared to this level of creepiness. Can you imagine? You're sleeping. You know you've locked your door. and suddenly this blonde, big boobs girl shows up next to you, who supposedly you're afraid of now because she's stalking you.
Did you know, though, you were talking about the tires and them being slashed. It didn't just happen once, it happened twice.
Wow.
The first time he was going to go meet some girls.
Yeah.
And so because she was hacked into his, emails and all that, she knew about it, so she went and slashed his tires. All his friends knew that it was Jodi. Travis even knew it was Jodi. So she drove him to go and get his tires replaced. Came back, I think it was a week if I can remember correctly. Guess whose tires were slashed once again?
No way. But listen, she wouldn't do a good secret agent, would she?
I don't think she was trying to be subtle, to be honest with you.
No, I think she wanted him to know. Like, look what I can do to you.
Well, listen, the people with borderline disorder, they experience love and hate at extremes.
Yeah.
So I could see why either she's like, oh, he loves me, and, she gets baptized for him, does whatever he wants, joins a Mormon church, becomes part of the LDS community, and then all of a sudden, when they break up, she's like, all right, well,
yeah,
let me show you what I've got.
Yeah. It's a bit scary. And that's the kind of woman you don't want to mess with. So Travis, he was meant to leave on a trip to Cancun, Mexico, on June 10th. Initially, he was going to take Jodi, but he decided against it. And in April, so about 2 months before he was supposed to go, he decided to take another woman whose name is Mimi Hall, and who he perceived as this perfect Mormon woman. He was literally trying to go after her, but I don't know if she was interested in him that way.
She says that they were friends, and they went on a few dates, but she says that there was a beginning of a romantic relationship, but it never went more than friendship.
Okay.
And they were going as friends.
It was platonic.
Yeah, she had told him at this point, hey, I'm not interested. And he says, well, it's booked. Let's just go as friends. Mm-hmm. Now, in his mind, maybe he was
hoping that he'll just woo her over there. Because, you're in Cancun, Mexico. You're in an exotic place.
He was going to try and maybe wine and dine. We don't know. Now we're just speculating. But they were going as just friends. And Mimi Hall makes that very clear.
Yeah. So about a week prior to the trip to Mexico, Jodi's grandparents' house is suddenly broken into. That's in California. It's the place where she had been living before. The only things that were taken was a DVD player, a little bit of cash, and a .22 caliber gun. Now just remember this, because this is an important information in the case. On June 4th, 2008, now this is 6 days prior to him leaving to Cancun, Mimi had not heard back from Travis about the Cancun trip, right? So I think she raised the alarm. They went to his home and found the murdered body of Travis Alexander in his bathroom. Now brace yourself. He had 27 stab wounds, a slit throat, and a gunshot to his face. And you'll never guess with what?
A .22 caliber.
A .22 caliber gun. And the minute that his body was found and the police was called and, the investigation started, because clearly it's a murder, it's not a suicide. You can't stab yourself 27 times and shoot yourself in the head, then slit your own throat. I think that's fairly impossible to do. So automatically this is a murder investigation. And when the investigation starts, they all pointed their finger at Jodi.
Well, keep in mind, Travis has told all his friends, hey, Jodi's stalking me, she's, Do
you know one thing that he'd also said to his friends before? During a random conversation, he'd say, oh, I think she's stalking me. And don't be surprised if you find me dead one day.
Wow.
Yeah. He just never reported it, though. But to be fair, if, let's say I'm Travis and I reported it and I say, oh, well, this woman, she's stalking me. And the police starts an investigation. I'm saying to the police, she's stalking me, but I'm inviting her over and over and over again to spend nights and so you can shag.
Yeah, it wouldn't look good.
No. The police would laugh at you and say, hang on a minute, if she's really stalking you, why are you inviting her into your home? You're not really scared. So there's no stalking case here.
Why are you calling her? Why are you emailing her? Why is this communication going?
Yeah. He was dead on June 4th, but he wasn't found until the 9th. We found such an overwhelming amount of information on this case that we felt were relevant to add. So we decided this one was going to be a two-parter. For now, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back very soon. So join us again on part 2 of Stalking a Crime, Addicted to Love.